Good afternoon. Welcome to the August 8th, 2023 City of Apopka Planning and Zoning meeting. If you would please stand with me for a moment of silent prayer and the pledge. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If there's anyone from the public here that wishes to speak on any matter before the board this evening, there will be a time during each agenda item to allow you to speak. If you have an item that is not on the agenda and it is planning and zoning related, now would be the time to be recognized. Seeing none, we'll move on. Item number 1, small-scale future land use amendment, The Ridge Self-Storage. Owners, The Ridge Self-Storage LLC. Applicant, Josh Edmondson, Polos and Bennett LLC. Location, west side of Ocoee, Apopka Road, and north of State Road 414. Mr. Howe. Bobby, is your microphone on?
Now it is.
There you go. I'm old and deaf, but I'm not that deaf.
So that concludes my presentation. So it's a small-scale future land use amendment from mixed use to industrial for 12.25 acres, property located north of State Road 414 and on the west side of Ocoee Apopka Road. Aerial map, as you can see on the screen, shows it's 2 parcels. Existing future land use shows it's mixed use. It'll be changed from that to industrial, and the reason for the change is to allow for the construction of a potential self-storage facility, which is not permitted in the mixed use future land use category or within the transitional zoning. So that's the request for the change. The Development Review Committee recommended approval, and the recommended motion this evening is approval. If you have any questions, myself and the applicant are available.
Bobby, I have a quick question. If you don't mind. If you don't mind. All right, I think it's just a typo, and maybe it's not. But in the document that I looked at, it says 12.25 acres in one paragraph, and then under a conservation element, policy 4.1, it says 10 acres. So is that a typo, or am I just not?
It's
10 acres or more in size is what the regulation is.
Yeah.
That's what it's listed.
Yes. So what it means, Mr. Washington, is that for a development that's over 10 acres, they'll have to provide a habitat study when they submit a site plan for review.
All right.
And that's a comprehensive plan policy.
It states that a habitat study is required,
Correct.
10 acres or more.
So this,
And the project is 12.2?
right. So when they submit a site plan, when the applicant does, they'll have to submit a habitat survey, environmental assessment.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
I knew it was going to be
Any more
easy.
questions of staff?
I have a question. So if we were to vote in approval of this, because this is a mixed use, or you say mixed use or light industrial?
They're going from mixed use to industrial future land use. So in this case, on the future land use amendment, it's from mixed use to industrial.
So if we voted approval of this, would this create a precedent for future similar type zoning for similar type development?
Well, we're not talking about zoning. This is a future land use amendment right now. The next case would be if this is approved, it would be a subsequent rezoning for this.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
So essentially, you're going to ask for the rezoning and then you'll have it
Yeah.
adjusted.
Right.
All right.
Any more questions? The applicant have a presentation.
Good evening, Chairman and Planning Commissioners. Phil Martinez, Senior Planner with Paulus and Bennett, located at 2602 East Livingston Street, Orlando, Florida, zip code 32803. I don't have a presentation this evening, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, one thing. Is this quasi judicial? Oh, no, 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 we need something else, forget it. Forget
This
it.
is a legislative
Forget
matter,
it.
sir.
Go past.
All right. Bring it back to the board for discussion and a motion, please.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to find the proposed change zoning from T transitional to IL light industrial, consistent with the comprehensive plan and land development code and compatible with the character of the surrounding areas. Recommend approval of the proposed change of zoning based on the findings and facts presented in the staff report and exhibits.
Thank you, Commissioner Stanley. Motion by Commissioner Stanley, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Washington. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Real quick, just before we go to the next item, which is associated with this one, of course, we do need to get the minutes approved. There's 2 sets of minutes.
I don't have an agenda, so. Does it have that on there?
Yep.
Ah,
It was the minutes from June 13th this year and July 11th.
yeah, I just signed them both. Okay.
Okay.
All right. We need to approve the meeting minutes from June 13th, 2023. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from June 13th, 2023.
Motion by Commissioner Stanley. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Mott. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Have a meeting minutes from July 11th, 2023. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Washington. Do I
Second.
have a second? Second by Commissioner Stanley. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Item number 2. Same property, the Ridge Self-Storage, change of zoning, owners, the Ridge Self-Storage LLC, applicant Josh Edmondson and Polos and Bennett LLC, location west side of Apopka Road and State Road 414. Mr. Al.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Bobby Howell, Planning Manager. This is the companion rezoning ordinance to the item that was previously approved. It's a rezoning from transitional T to IL light industrial. As you can see on the existing zoning map, the property to the east is zoned light industrial, so it is compatible with the surrounding area. The applicant has indicated the reason for the rezoning is to construct a proposed self-storage facility. Based on that, the Development Review Committee recommends approval, and the recommended motion this evening is to approve this rezoning ordinance. If you have any question, myself and the applicant are available.
Thank you, Mr. Howell. Any questions of staff?
Now, this is the one where I see quasi judicial on page 2.
That is correct, sir.
So, excuse me?
That is, yes, this is a quasi-judicial hearing.
It's right here.
For the motion. Anyone else?
No, sir.
Okay. Any questions of the applicant?
No.
No, because I asked you, have we had a,
Yes, and I will do that before the motion.
all right.
All right, which would be now, because I don't assume there's anyone from the public wish to speak on this matter. All right, seeing none. Does anyone here had ex parte communication on this matter?
No, sir.
No,
Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for a motion.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we find the proposed change of zoning from T transitional to IL. Sorry. Consistent with the comprehensive plan and the land development code and compatible with the character of the surrounding areas, recommend approval of the proposed change of zoning based on the findings and facts presented in the staff reports and exhibits.
Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Mott. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Stanley. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Item 3, special exemption request to allow heavy equipment sales, rental, repair, servicing, or storage in a Industrial Light Zoning District. Owner, Larry Everly Senior Family Trust. Applicant, Tara Tidro, Lowndes Law Firm. Location, 4203 Hogshead Road. Mr. Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Bobby Howell, Planning Manager. This is a request for a special exception to allow heavy equipment sales, rental, repair, servicing, or storage in the light industrial district. Property is located at 4203 Hogshead Road, and the predominance of the surrounding properties are industrial, future land use and zoning designations. This is primarily an industrial area of the city. In accordance with Section 2.5.1 G4 of the LDC, Land Development Code, a special exception request is required to be in compliance with the 12 standards as noted in the code. Those 12 standards are on the screen before you. The Planning Commission has the authority to take final action on a special exception application and may approve the application, approve it with conditions, or deny it. This is the site plan that's been furnished by the applicant. We will have a development plan come in, assuming if, in the event the special exception is approved by the Planning Commission, the applicant will then submit a development plan for review. The Development Review Committee recommends approval, and the recommended motion is approval. If you have any questions, myself and the applicant are available.
Thank you. All right, as this is a special exemption, would be quasi judicial. Do I have anyone on staff that or on the board who has had ex parte communication on this matter?
No,
No, sir.
Okay. All right, does anyone have questions of staff?
I do.
Commissioner Washington.
Bob, it says there's an existing 6-foot-tall white piece PVC fence around the perimeter of the property currently. Is that right? But it also says that it's inconsistent with the buffering requirements that they have to. So why is it inconsistent? Does the fence have to be removed and reinstalled somewhere? Why?
Because the fence was installed prior to the request for the special exception. There's criteria in the code for a special exception, which requires specific buffering. That's in the landscape standards of the code.
Okay, I understand the buffering. Does that mean that it interferes, the fence is interfering with this?
The fence is inconsistent with what the code allows. So that's why that
What,
is noted.
more specifically, what would have to be changed to make it within the requirements?
The fencing would have to be taken down and have to be provided with opaque landscaping around the perimeter of the site pursuant to Chapter 5 of the Land Development Code.
Would they be obligated to reinstall the fence?
No, sir.
No.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, any more questions of staff?
No, sir.
All right, does the applicant have a presentation?
Afternoon, Logan Opsahl, Lowndes Law Firm, 215 North Yola Drive. I've done a formal presentation, but happy to stand for questions. This was a property that's gone before DRC. We were able to discuss with staff at length. It is a property, given the original fencing and the buffering, it's kind of uniquely situated to have this use. And of course, we'll bring those buffering performance standards up to code standards. But happy to answer any questions on this one.
All right, any questions of the applicant?
No, sir.
No, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this matter? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for a motion.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to approve the special exception to allow outdoor storage for construction equipment, trucks, and truck trailers within the IL Light Industrial Zoning District, subject to the exhibits and findings of the staff report.
Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Stanley. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's a tie. Second, motion, second by Commissioner Washington. You can have the next one.
No problem.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, special exemption. Item 4, special exemption to allow outdoor storage in the IL Industrial Light Zoning District for a period not to exceed 12 months. Owner, Capital Engines 12 LLC. Applicant, Jeffrey L. Smith. Location, 4233 Hogshead Road. This would be quasi judicial also. Is there anyone on the board? Is that ex parte communication on this matter?
No.
Seeing none, we'll move forward. Mr. Howe.
Thank you. Once again, Bobby Howell, Planning Manager for the record. This is a special exception at 4233 Hogshead Road, literally right next door to the previously approved special exception at 4203 Hogshead Road. This is its zone light industrial. The request is to approve outdoor storage for a period not to exceed 12 months, while the owner is building a maintenance facility for construction equipment and ancillary storage of those materials in conjunction with the construction business that will be ultimately located on the site. In accordance with Section 2.51G4 of the Land Development Code, a special exception request is required to be in compliance with 12 standards noted in the code. As you can see, it's in an industrial area of town. These are the standards that are noted in the code that the special exceptions are reviewed against by the staff. And this is the site plan provided by the applicant, which shows the open storage area, the temporary open storage area. The Development Review Committee recommended approval, and the recommended motion this evening is to approve the special exception for a period not to exceed 12 months. Myself and the applicant are available for questions.
Any questions of staff?
I don't know if this was
Commissioner Mott.
staff. The 12 months, is that, I understand 12 months, is that to erect a building that the outdoor storage would then be inside of after 12 months? Or I didn't quite get that.
That is my understanding.
Okay.
Yes.
Any more questions? I have a question. Relevant to Commissioner Mott's question, why is it necessary for if this is, my understanding, this is under construction, correct?
Not at this time.
Okay, well, it's going to be.
Correct, in the
Okay,
future.
So
yes.
it'll be permitted to be under construction. Why is it necessary for this while it's under construction? In other words, code enforcement doesn't go where they're building a house and yell at them for parking a tractor outside when they're doing the grading. So why is this necessary? What's the impetus for having to have this? I'm just
Outdoor
curious.
storage requires a special exception in the light industrial zone. It's my understanding, the applicant is here and he can kind of clarify that a little bit more. They bought the property and with the understanding that they could do the storage, but then I think there was, and this could be clarified a little bit more by the applicant, some communication where they had to then do the outdoor storage by a special exception and they would move everything inside. Inside is a permitted use, indoor storage is.
Also, outdoor storage does require paved parking for any type of use, along with proper drainage, stormwater drainage. So it's,
Right, but again, it's under construction.
yep. Well, that's why we gave them a 12-month period to make it attainable for code.
Works for me. All right. Is the applicant here and do they have a presentation?
Good evening, Jeff Summit with Summit Engineering, 3667 Simonton Place, Lake Mary. No, I don't have a presentation, but just a little clarification in regards to the request. So outdoor storage, we need a primary structure. We actually need it can be an ancillary use in the zoning district, but it can't be the primary use in the zoning district. So while we're going through design and permitting for our permanent facility, we still want to be able to utilize the site. So that's the reason for the request.
Understood. Thank you for the clarification. Anyone else have questions, of the applicant?
No, sir.
All righty, thank you, sir. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this matter? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve a special exception to allow outdoor storage for a period not to exceed 12 months within the I-L zoning district, subject to the exhibits and findings of the staff report.
Thank you, sir. Motion by Commissioner Washington. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Mott. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 5, shops at East Shore retaining walls variance. This would be a quasi judicial, so do I have anyone here who has had ex parte communication on this matter?
No.
No.
Mr.
Seeing
Chair,
none, we'll move forward.
Mr. Chair, this item we're going to postpone or pull until the September 12th meeting.
I'm sorry?
We're going to pull this particular meeting, or this item, until the September 12th meeting. There's some issues that came up regarding the wall height, but primarily the slope between the walls for the tiered type system. So we're going to wait wait and pull this and bring it back next month.
All right, this item will be tabled for future matter. Okay, item 6. We're doing this one, right?
I would
He didn't.
just do a motion to table.
I'm sorry?
You need to do a motion to table.
I'll
And then
make
have
a
it
motion,
seconded.
Mr.
All
Chairman,
right,
to
good.
table item number 5.
All
To-
right.
I'll second.
Motion by
Can-
Commissioner Mott,
Can
second
you,
by
can
Commissioner
you add the
Stanley.
date to that, to the September 12th meeting? This way it's a date certain.
To the September 12th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting.
Thank you.
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Tell me that before we start, Jim, and we won't bring
Sorry.
it up. All right.
I apologize.
Pay attention here. Pay attention, Jim. All right. Item number 6. This is subject to a special exemption request to allow duplex use in the Wild Oaks Golden Gem neighborhood properties. It's quasi judicial. So I would ask, has anyone on the board had ex parte communication on this matter?
No.
Seeing none, we will move forward. The request to approve a special exemption use permit to allow duplex residential use for the Wild Oaks Golden Gem neighborhood properties. Owners, Kelly Park VB Development LLC. Applicants, Lowndes Law Firm, Terra Tidro. Location, west of State Road 429, east of Golden Gem Road, and north of Capitol Reef Way. Mrs. Sanchez.
Jean Sanchez with the Community Development Department. This is a request to grant special exception allowing duplex within the neighborhood overlay district of the Kelly Park Interchange Form-Based Code, specifically for the Wild Oaks development. The properties are located west of State Road 429, east of Golden Gem Road, and north of Capitol Reef Way. Current future land use designation is mixed use and within the KPI MU zoning in the neighborhood overlay district. Per Land Development Code Section 2.5.1 G4, special exception is required to comply with these standards also outlined in the staff report. The subject property is proposed to be added to the boundary of the previously approved Wild Oak development, and it was in fact adopted on July 19, 2023 as the amendment to the master plan for Wild Oaks. It was formerly called Kelly Park Crossings, located in the southwest corner of Kelly Park Road and State Road 429. The KPI form-based code regulating plan indicates that subject properties are, as I mentioned, in a neighborhood, as well as a little portion of it is in the employment overlay districts. According to the code, duplex use requires special exception use permit within the neighborhood overlay district specifically. This request is only for the neighborhood overlay district, not employment. So in order to satisfy this code, the applicant is requesting that the Planning Commission grant this request. The current master plan for Wild Oaks was previously approved by City Council, and as I mentioned, the amendment was approved on July 19th. The amendment to the development agreement that include these properties is still under staff review, specifically under legal review. The DRC recommends approval of this special exception use permit. The recommended motion is to approve a special exception to allow duplex use in the Wild Oaks neighborhood properties, subject to the exhibits and findings of the staff report. Staff and applicant are available for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Sanchez. Anyone have questions of staff?
No.
Is the applicant here to have a presentation?
Good evening, Chairman and fellow Commission members. My name is Jonathan Hewells with the Lowndes Law Firm, 215 North Eula Drive. I'm here on behalf of Ms. Tedrow, who is still on maternity leave. You are familiar, I'm sure all of you, with these properties. This may be the third time that they have come before you. This will be the final action in this series to complete the master planning for the properties and allow them to be integrated into the Wild Oaks project. So
You gotta be kidding me.
happy to answer any questions. For these
This
properties,
is gonna be it, huh? All right.
you never know what the future holds, but this will conclude the final chapter on the book on these. Been happy to answer any questions. If there's anyone here from the public, just reserve the ability to address any comments after they're made. Thank you,
Anyone
Commissioner.
have questions?
And just real quick, I'm just curious, how many are you thinking units?
Yeah, so as part of the master plan amendment that came through City Commission and this board prior to that, this neighborhood district is programmed for 198 dwelling units. And that will be either single-family residential or the duplex that's being requested. It just allows more flexibility in the housing that could be provided within this district of the overall project.
Thank you, Ms. Fuels. All right. Is there anyone here from the public which should speak on this matter? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. So moved.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to approve the special exception to allow duplex use within the neighborhood overlay district of the Kelly Park Interchange, form-based code area, subject to the exhibits and findings of the staff report.
Thanks, sir. Motion by Commissioner Stanley. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Washington. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 7, Planning Commission Staff Report, Land Development Code Amendment Ordinance 3021. Recommended approval of the Apopka City Council of the Land Development Code Amendments. I'm not going to read that summary. All righty. Mr. Hitt.
Jim Hitt, Community Development Director. This is the 7th version of the glitch amendments that we've been putting together just to keep our code up to date and make it work a little bit better for ourselves and for the city as a whole. This set of glitch amendments themselves does pertain to Chapter 18. Actually, Chapter 18 we took out. That was the first item under Section 1. It had to do with the building and building regulations and the correction notification fees. That is going to go under a separate ordinance that will go towards City Council. We can't combine fees and the Land Development Code. So that one is now, that portion's pulled. So as a result, these are going to be directly related to just the Land Development Code itself. And typically what I just do is go through the different sections so that I can kind of highlight the changes that are being proposed for these. In this case, for the residential multifamily district, we're increasing the height of the buildings from 35 feet to 35 to 55 feet, but we also have a maximum height difference for each of those stories. Of 1 story can go up to 35 feet, 2-story up to 45, 4-story up to 55, and a 5-story does require a special exception, which you're very familiar with after doing 3 of those tonight. The other part is that the alley, we're clarifying that the alley is supposed to be for a private alley with a utility overlay, and that the front of the units does have to face a addressable street address street. So that basically you're not addressing off of an alley, you're addressing off of a major street. That is in line with what we've been working on for all of our projects, but we're clarifying it. The next one is the residential mixed-use district, and basically we did the same exact thing. Clarifying the height itself, the different levels for the height, and then also regarding the alleys themselves. So those two are basically the exact same type of thing. Under the mixed-use downtown district, we had some clarifications there. Originally, we did not have front yard, side yard, or corner side yard, or rear yard setbacks clarified. This clarifies those setbacks. There was too many people coming in that were looking at those and relying on one of the notes, which had to do with other uses for the future land use or for the zoning itself. So this way, there is an actual front yard setback for residential and for other uses. It's one of those things that we were having too many problems having to explain. Yes, you still have to have a setback. Yes, you still have to have landscape buffers. So this helped qualify that. Under planned development districts, this was another one that needed clarification, does require a mix of residential and non-residential uses. In other words, you can't come in and make a request for a planned development just to supersede or just to avoid having to do things with the code itself. The idea is that we want a mixed-use product when we do a PD. It's a planned development. Planned developments are typically those mixed-type use developments. That one was a simple one. And then a couple of the other things that came up has to do with the permitted uses table itself. We realized that utilities were not being allowed under institutional land uses. That's properties that we own. And so I'm putting that down as a permitted use for utilities. It just kind of made sense for that. And then the other one that came under the accessory uses was building business tax receipts. Were not actually allowed under home occupation for 3 of the residential districts. One was the residential multifamily, the other one was the residential mixed use, and then mobile home park district. So we are allowing businesses, as in home occupational businesses, to actually have a BTR in those locations. Another one that came up was alternative surface materials for minimal use areas, such as churches and parks. Those are the 2 that came to mind for me, is that they aren't used all the time. They're used sporadically, either on Sundays or Wednesday nights or ball fields, or also whether it's private or public. They don't necessarily have to have a full impervious parking lot in order to be able to be used as a temporary type use. So we actually put in some alternative surface materials that can be utilized. They still have to have landscape islands. They still have to have curbed in. If they go with mulch type surfaces, there is a requirement to redo the mulch at least twice a year. And you do have to have it curbed in so that the mulch doesn't migrate off site. If there's a heavy rain, mulch tends to float a little bit, so we want to make sure that that doesn't impede anybody else's property and the neighboring properties.
Jim, just
Also
real-
requires
just real
that-
quick, That includes grass?
Grass, yeah, grass
Includes
can be done too. The other thing is that there is a requirement that the drive aisles do need to be paved. And the reason for that is that's the part that, you can pull in, but everybody's using a drive aisle, so we don't want that to turn out to be mush or mud. And basically, it helps with the drainage patterns. That was one that we had worked with the city engineer for. And then one that came up over the last couple of years was regarding balconies and porches. This one, we actually, trying to find somebody that actually has a definition of a balcony or definition of a porch was actually a chore. A lot of the larger cities, they have something that's very, very minimal. So what we did with this one is I've got it for any multifamily or multi-residential buildings of 2 or more stories, balconies and porches shall adhere to the following requirements. One of the big ones is that we're requiring balconies or porches on at least 50% of any facade that's facing a street. For that. And then the other part is the definition of a balcony itself. We actually have a definition of 5 feet deep, 6 feet wide, approximately 30 square feet. And if it's going to be a luxury type, if they're going to claim it's luxury, then those balconies are 5 feet deep by 12 feet wide, which is 60 square feet. So we now have a definition, which was one of the sticking points for one of the developments that we had in town. Obviously, that one was relegated by a previously approved development agreement. Most of the developments that we have do not have development agreements that require a balcony, but no definition for it. But this way, we actually have the definition in there. Front porches can go into setbacks so long as they're, again, 6 feet deep, 5 feet wide, and they can go into a side yard setback. not within a utility agreement or utility easement also. Second story balconies, same type of thing. Anything second stories or over do require a balcony of, which was defined with the 5 feet by 6 feet. So that'll take care of those issues. If we ever have another development agreement that requires balconies, we now have a definition of what those are. The other part is that screens are allowed, and it also talks about balconies that are extruding from the facade does not count towards the square footage that's required for a unit. If it's internal or intruding, that we will count towards the square footage of a unit. And other than that, that's all the
Yeah,
items
Jim,
we have.
when you refer to internally, you'll allow that square footage to be counted. The internal part is not, are you thinking the internal part is not enclosed?
It does not, correct. It would still have to be open air.
Okay,
Whether it's screened and closed, that's okay. But if it's by windows, then it's not counted as a balcony. It basically has to be open air. But one of the things that, for instance, that it kind of comes in handy with this is with the residential multifamily district, if it's multifamily, for instance, the living area is 750 feet for a one-bedroom, 900 feet for a two-bedroom or more. So if it was 900 square feet, if you had a 30-square-foot balcony that's intruding, that can count towards that 900 feet.
so essentially the intruding part is covered.
Yeah, under
Correct,
roof.
yes, yeah.
So it'd be
Basically,
under
it would
roof.
be behind the facade of the building
Yeah.
itself.
Okay. And does this change that you're asking us to review tonight, especially in reference to the balconies and the screening, et cetera? I think many of us have seen over a period of time in some locations where high rises with balconies, they start off with screening and then eventually it looks like a hodgepodge of, we enclosed it with, permanent windows and all that type of thing. There's nothing.
They would have to come in and request that they be enclosed, and we would
Okay.
probably require that all of them would be enclosed at that point. We do have, obviously, there's a lot of apartment complexes that don't have a balcony. They look like they would have. And, those are something that's already been done, obviously.
And then I had a couple more questions on the parking. I read through several sections there, and it talks about, it needs to be replaced at least once a year or greater and that type of thing. And it talks about the drainage and et cetera, and the ground and clay and, who does all that?
Well, that's the engineer. That's why I was
Okay.
working with Richard Earp on those.
Okay.
Yeah, it's still, basically, it still has to be able to drain properly. In other words, if they put a clay surface down there, all of that would float pretty quick.
That would go through the engineering stuff.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And then the last question that I had was in the section 4. If I understand correctly and read correctly, you're essentially going to allow home-based business, if I want to use that term.
Yeah, it's a business, BTR is business tax receipt.
Okay.
So if somebody had a business that they operated from their house or from their,
Okay.
or from an apartment, they could still have a BTR at that location.
So this has nothing to do with that potential home-based business and the parking that could happen out in front of the house.
They cannot have, basically a BTR that's, if it's a home occupation, you can't have any more people in that house doing that occupation than you would normally do for a single family or a unit.
Very good.
You also cannot put out what's commonly termed a shingle, saying you're doing
Okay.
this kind of a business at that location. Whether it's in the window or stuck in the ground or anything like that, you still can't advertise it outside there. Our local expert is Erin Arnold. She handles a lot of she's got a certification in the business tax receipts. Yeah, I'm going to embarrass you.
All right. Any more questions?
I did, hey, Jim.
Commissioner Washington.
Was this whole thing with the balconies, there was a lot of pain behind that. So I'm just wondering, was the whole conversation with Orange County and was it Southwick Affordable Housing Project and the back and forth of what is a balcony, what is not a balcony, et cetera, et cetera. Was that experience with the county the catalyst for you developing these new rules for the balconies?
No, it was comments from city council in regards that they did not feel comfortable enforcing a balcony requirement that we don't have a definition for. So that's where it came from. It had nothing to do with the county itself. It was the development agreement that did not have a definition. And one of the things about any type of requirement that we have I would say it's virtually impossible to put every single definition for every single requirement that we have into a code. The definition portion would be as big as the code itself at that point. And then it's all interpretation. One of the things that I found regarding balconies is if you query Google and ask for a definition of a balcony, you'll get 30 or 40 different types of definitions. So the chore was coming up with just a size, the type, and the location, and what you can do with it. I figured try to keep it as simple as possible, but still have something that has a definition for a balcony.
Okay, so in the future, when we look at new projects and the developer wants to talk about balconies, there are rules now in place that
Correct.
defines exactly what it is, including affordable housing projects,
Anything
anything that comes our way.
at this stage, yep.
Any more questions? No. All right. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this matter? Seeing none, bring it back to the board for a motion.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to approve the amendment to the Land Development Code and forward to the Apopka City Council for consideration.
Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Stanley. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Mott. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Site plan for Floor and Decor Apopka, major development plan. Excuse me. Owners, Mid-Florida Freezer Properties LLC. Applicant, Kimberly Horn Associates, care of Brian Ashby, P.E. Location, southwest corner of Lakeview Drive and US 441. Ms. Sanchez.
Jean Sanchez with the Community Development Department. This is a request to recommend approval of the Floor and Decor Major Development Plan. The subject property is located on the southwest corner of Lakeview Drive and US 441. The aerial shows industrial warehouse uses on the west and the south, a gas station on the north, and residential subdivision on the east. It's approximately 5.72 acres in size. The Floor and Decor Apopka MTP proposes to construct a building with 77,901 square feet of area for wholesale facility. While 70 parking spaces are required, the applicant is proposing a total of 120 parking spaces plus 6 accessible spaces. These parking spaces are dispersed on the north and south of the building, with the loading area located on the southern end. The proposed building height is 32 feet, while the maximum permitted height is 45 feet. The landscape plan proposes red maple and oak trees within the landscape parking islands and the perimeter of the project area. Oak trees embellish the frontage along US 441, and a combination of crepe myrtle and red maples are placed along Lakeview Drive. The MDP shows right-in, right-out access points located in US 441 and Lakeview Drive, as well as access on Mayflower Avenue. The applicant is currently undergoing the vacation process for Shepherd Avenue right-of-way with Orange County, which will serve as another access point to the project site. The proposed renderings meet the city's development design guidelines. The DRC recommends approval. The recommended motion is to recommend approval of the Floor and Decor Apopka MDP, subject to the findings in the staff report. Staff and applicant are available for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Sanchez. Any questions of staff?
No.
I see it says 6 accessible spaces. Is that the correct amount? I don't want to hear about it later.
I'm sorry? Is it 6?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm
Does
counting
the
in my head.
applicant here wish to give a presentation?
Good evening. Brian Ashby, 189 South Orange Avenue with Kimley Horn. No presentation tonight, but we agree with staff's findings and are here for any questions.
Great, thank you. Does anyone have questions of the applicant?
I do.
Commissioner Washington.
I don't know if you can do this. Can you rewind back to the site plan? Okay. All right. So, so you have Lakeview at the bottom of the drawing or the site plan. And of course, you have 441 to the right. And then you have this other road, Mayflower Avenue on the left. So you had the building pretty much in the middle. And then parking looks like it's just going to be on the left side of the building and the right side of the building. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. So if I read it correctly, you'll have access points from 441. I think there's one, I believe. And then on Lakeview, you have two write-ins,
Correct. Yep.
two write-outs, as well as.
Only one right out.
Only one
Oh,
on
yeah, a
Lakeview?
write in on the north side. So page right, that's a write in only. And then on page left on Lakeview Drive, that is a write in, write out.
Okay. The, I guess, you know, I don't know about this, but that, we've had conversations with maybe the owner of this property once before about what to do with this property. And there were a couple of residents who didn't particularly like what was going to happen because of the traffic. And I appreciate their concern because I go through all the time when I go to the golf course, to be honest with you. And the traffic just can be pretty heavy. And now that we have the truck driving school that's very active, they go down that road all the time. So now I'm just visualizing what's going to be the impact, you know, on that road now with your project and traffic going in and out of that project based on what I just said. What do you say about that?
Well, we've worked with staff to hopefully help address that in the future. There was nothing that we could do from a road improvement standpoint at this point in time to Lakeview Drive, but the applicant is proposing and has committed and is on the major development plan of dedicating 30 feet of property along US 441 for public right-of-way. So to be able to fit a right turn lane if and when FDOT decides to put one there to help alleviate some of those traffic issues. I will say I think our peak hour trips for this site are somewhere in the range of about 18 peak hour trips to this site. So we're not talking about a real heavy user for this type of development. But we have worked with staff to, again, limit our access points and also dedicate future right-of-way along 441 to allow for future improvements.
Okay, that's great for 441. What about Lakeview? Can you?
Lakeview is a county road. And so that is in talking with Miss Pam Richmond, I believe there's been lots of talks in the past about what the county, what their plans are for Lakeview Drive, but I am not aware of any current improvements that are proposed for Lakeview Drive. There is sufficient right-of-way there for maybe a possible right turn lane out onto 441, but for this project, it's not really a warranted improvement based off of the traffic counts.
Well, I guess one thing is, you know, your project is 77 square feet, right?
77, approximately 77,000 square feet.
Sorry, 77,000 square feet. So just put things in perspective, Home Depot is 136,000. So it's just kind of in my mind, I put things in perspective because I'm just thinking about, you got a big warehouse here is going to be generating a lot of traffic in and out. It's going to be hairy. So I guess it's one good thing that it is a smaller building than Home Depot. That works for you.
It's a different type of use also.
How so?
Home Depot has
It's a retail
garden
operation.
center, a whole bunch of different, types of material inside. They got a wood department. Have you ever been to a Floor and Decor? There's one up in Lake Mary that I've been to, and even at the busiest time of the day, that's why they don't have a gob of parking in the front. They do, you can pick up the materials in the back, but it's not comparative to a Home Depot, size-wise even.
Yeah, I believe there was a gas station that was proposed here at one point in time, or potentially a
Or
Starbucks.
something like that. Yeah, the building was set back a lot farther, and it was an access issue for the roads. It's very limited access.
Yeah.
They're currently on this property in the front.
There's a grocery
Is
and
it's a
mechanic.
And a restaurant.
it's a grocery. It's kind of like a specialty grocery store
Correct.
for certain food.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's currently 4 driveway connections along 441, and then 1 massive driveway connection that's about 100 feet wide on Lakeview Drive. And so we're consolidating those down and pushing those away from the intersection to help with some of those conflicting turning movements.
Can I ask you a question? I
Sure.
mean, the right-in off of Lakeview, I'm sure there was discussion about right-in and no right-out.
Mm-hmm.
What was the thought with no right-out? And the only reason that I'm asking that is somebody comes to the front, at this front parking lot on 441, and goes in and then, purchases something, but then needs to go to the back,
Yeah.
possibly to do pickup.
If they have to go to the back if they end up going to the back to do a pickup, they would have to go take a right onto 441 and then a right onto Lakeview Drive. Correct.
I interpreted that. I was just kind of curious why there was.
There was too many conflicts with the driveway. If you were to make a right-hand turn out, it's almost a blind corner coming in
Okay.
like that. So it's a lot simpler to just make it a right in, and that way there's no more conflict there.
It's pretty heavily vegetated in the right of way there. I will say, the trees grow almost up to the edge of the pavement there. So there's sight distance. I think a lot of it was sight distance, safety. So
And, so that part down there is continued vegetation.
mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, gotcha.
Okay, so right now, the way it's set up, someone who is traveling from, was it Binion Road or Orange Avenue to 441, so they'll be prevented from making a left-hand turn into the project?
They can either take a left onto, if they're coming northbound, technically they would go up to Mayflower Avenue and use that entrance up there.
Mayflower?
Yes.
Okay.
And that also serves as the main truck access point as well. We didn't want any trucks backing in and out on Lakeview Drive for that very reason. So all truck access will be off of Mayflower to keep that entry and exit into the site off of Lakeview as much as possible.
So you will have a public entrance on the backside?
It is public right away. So that is
So public can park in that back parking lot?
if
and-
they wanted to,
Okay.
yes, yes.
And still enter the back part of the store?
Yep.
Okay,
There
got
is a door back there as well.
Okay.
Yep. And we also do have a sidewalk along the, if for some reason they didn't want to use the rear exit, there is a sidewalk along the Page South. There's a sidewalk along that entire building edge there
Mm-hmm.
to connect the two.
Okay.
Okay, so if you have somebody traveling northbound on Lakeview, they can make a left turn onto Mayflower.
Mhm.
And if somebody is leaving the property, they can make a left turn to continue to go northbound on Lakeview? Will they be permitted to do that?
Yes, they could go from Mayflower and make a left on the Lakeview. Yep.
Okay, only reason why I'm asking, I'm just seeing how traffic can be impeded. Somebody's waiting to cross, to go through, make the turn, and on the way out, gonna be the same sort of thing, so, these are just my thoughts.
Sure.
Being on that road and knowing that anything can stop the flow of traffic with the snap of your finger. So, that's what I see here, but it is what it is.
We've tried to locate these and limit the amount of conflicts for that very reason and push our again, that right in only on the north end will eliminate a lot of conflicting movements out. I anticipate the majority of customers will be parking in this north parking lot, and therefore when they need to leave, they'll be pushed off of Lakeview and onto 441. And at that point, whether they decide to make but it will, I believe, take some traffic off of Lakeview that would normally, maybe if we would have had a right in, right out on the north end, may have pushed them back out on there, or given them an option, I'll say, to drive that direction.
All right. Any more questions?
No.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this matter? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to recommend approval for the Flora Decor Apopka - Major Development Plan, subject to the findings in the staff report.
Thank you, sir. Motion by Commissioner Washington. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Stanley. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Site plan, Shops of East Shore Multifamily Major Development Plan. Request approval of the Shops of East Shore Multifamily Major Development Plan. Owners, Shops at East Shore LLC. Applicant Kimley Horn and Associates, care of Jordan Draper, P.E. Location, northwest corner of Ocoee Apopka Road and Keene Road. Ms. Sanchez.
Jean Sanchez with the Community Development Department. This is a request to recommend approval of the Shops at East Shore Multifamily Major Development Plan. The subject property is located in the northeast corner of Ocoee Apopka Road and Keene Road. This is the northern portion of the Shops at East Shore Plan Development. You may have remembered this from the master plan. The PD is approximately 27 acres in size. The aerial shows agriculture and residential uses on the north and east, Orange County Waste Facility to the south, and Jefferson Apartments to the west. The Shops at East Shore Multifamily MDP proposes to construct an age-restricted apartment complex with a proposed height of almost 55 feet on the northern portion of the Shops at East Shore PD. The PD established a maximum permitted height of 65 feet for this portion, and this project requires 262 parking spaces, while 271 spaces are provided by the applicant with 10 accessible parking spaces. The landscape plan proposes oak trees within landscape parking islands and southern magnolia and sable palm trees embellish the frontage on Ocoee Apopka Road. Crepe myrtles decorate the foundation planting around the apartment buildings. The MDP shows 2 access points located on Ocoee Apopka Road, as well as access along the drive aisle shared with the adjacent proposed grocer to the south. Therefore, the site may be accessed via Keene Road through the grocery portion of the PD. Pedestrian connections provided between the multifamily project and the approved grocery store. The proposed renderings meet the development design guidelines. The DRC recommends approval. The recommended motion is to recommend approval of the Shops at East Shore Multifamily Major Development Plan, subject to the findings of the staff report. Staff and applicant are available for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Sanchez. Any questions of staff?
No.
The applicant here, do they have a presentation?
Good evening, Jordan Draper with Kimley Horn, 189 South Orange, Orlando, Florida. No presentation tonight, but here to answer any questions.
Great. Anyone have questions of the applicant?
No, sir.
All right, sir. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Does anyone from public wish to speak on this matter? Pretty sure that's a no. Bring it back to the board for a vote.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to recommend approval of the Shops at East Shore Multifamily Major Development Plan, subject to the findings in the staff report.
Thank you, sir. Motion by Commissioner Stanley. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Washington. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Do we have any old business? Any new business? Seeing none, meeting adjourned.